So here I was, didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve when I started, have no money, still have student loans, and now I have a broken body. I am living on my friend's couch in New York City, and I have no purpose. So it could go either way. Either I'm going to find a way to break through and be resourceful, or I'm going to go down, down, down in a way that I've seen other people kind of falter and fall and end up engaging in bad behaviors for the long term.
Hello and welcome to My Great Pivot. I'm Carrie Regan, and I share stories of brave, bold, brilliant women who've left traditional careers to pursue their dreams. If you're in a place where you want or need to change careers, this episode is for you, because my next guest offers a masterclass in how to pivot. And if her voice sounds familiar, it may be because you've heard her in this.
Coming up, Pro Football Hall of Famer Deion Sanders drops by.
Or this.
It's a Homeland reunion when Claire Danes and Damian Lewis present Ensemble in a drama series.
Or this.
Picture this, it's lunchtime or dinner time, whatever, it's time to eat Taco Bell time.
Andia Winslow is an award-winning voice artist, actor, and storyteller who's voiced campaigns for some of the world's biggest brands, acted in projects like the TV adaptation of A League of Their Own, voiced characters for video games like Call of Duty, and narrated documentary series like PBS's Wild Hope. But that's not all. She's been a golf pro, a live-in hospice care provider. She was once voted New York City's best personal trainer, and she even spent a year training for the U.S. Olympic skeleton team at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid. In our conversation, Andia talks about navigating uncertainty, the hidden power of those in-between periods of our professional lives, and why she believes the most important question in navigating a career pivot isn't what do you do, but rather what brings your soul alive. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Andia Winslow. Andia Winslow, welcome to My Great Pivot. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
I don't even know where to begin with your background because you have done so much. You are an award-winning voiceover artist. You're an actress. You're a conservationist. You've been a professional golfer who's competed in the LPGA. You've been invited to train for the U.S. Olympic skeleton team. You have been named New York City's best personal trainer. You have done it all. And above all, I really wanted to speak with you because you are an expert at the professional pivot. You have encountered a lot of challenges in your own professional career, and you've always managed to navigate those challenges and pivot to something new with such grace while keeping your values front of mind. So I'm really excited to dive into all of that today.
I'm excited too. The professional pivot, I like how you frame it, professional. I don't know that it happened so professionally as the pivots were happening, but I was definitely changing my weight shift. So it was definitely a true pivot.
Yeah, and this is the thing. When you're in it, it's what I call, with so many of our female founders, the messy middle. When you're in the middle of it, it doesn't always seem intentional. But then when you look back on it, there are so many through lines where you do see where there was perhaps a lot of intentionality in the pivot that you didn't necessarily think of as intentional at the time. But before we dive into all that, let's go back to the beginning, maybe as a teenager growing up outside of Seattle. Can you tell me what Andia as a teenager wanted to be when she grew up? Did you have any sense of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh, so this is a tricky question that I've actually been asking myself in my more wizened version of myself. And I think I lied to people and told people that I wanted to be, a professional golfer because that's kind of the path that I was on. But really, I just wanted to be Pippi Longstocking. And so by saying that, I mean someone who is with animals all the time, outside in nature, exploring, adventuring, eating snacks, breaking bread with friends and family. And it is only until, I guess, this year where I said, wait a second, I am Pippi Longstocking. I have achieved it. I also had an interest in astrophysics. I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson the other day in a speech, and I was like, did I miss my calling? Should I have been, a physicist somewhere? But I realized that, like you said, all the disparate parts of me and all the different pivots actually have led to a very cohesive life that I'm quite proud of and excited to live every day. And so, yeah, growing up, I would just say I wanted to adventure. That's really what I ultimately wanted to do. And I just kind of kept that quiet because that wasn't the answer people were looking for when you're in prep school and you're going to an Ivy League school. They want you to say, I'm going to be a doctor, lawyer, a consultant canon. And that wasn't really my path. But looking back, yeah, Pippi Longstocking for sure.
As you say, there are these expectations that are put on us, especially when you head off after high school, you head off to Yale.
Mm-hmm.
And you're surrounded by a lot of people who are on that consultant path. Did you feel when you got to school this pressure to pursue a more traditional life?
Yes. And also, I realized ultimately schools like that, liberal arts colleges, elite universities, they're not even about teaching you a specific genre or a specific trade. It's more about learning how to learn and learning how to connect, learning how to engage. And I think that school definitely taught me those things. I did see people doing the traditional things, but I also saw folks who were establishing their own paths. And I said to myself, okay, if I can maybe do a little bit of both, then all this tuition won't be for naught.
Right, because that's always a concern as well. When you first got out of school, what did you do?
I was completely lost. I was lost in the sauce. I had no idea. I was probably a little bit depressed. I was missing golf in a way that I didn't expect to. And so I said, let me try the golf industry. So I moved down to Florida and I was working for Walt Disney World and I worked for the golf division. And so that was managing, they had 5 golf courses at the time. So anything from, point of sale in the pro shops to golf tournament operations to on-course assistance for our guests. And so I kind of got to see what was behind the curtain of the mouse, the big mouse. And then I was working on my game and was looking to turn pro. And so I was doing that for quite some time after college. And it was just a bad time because the economy tanked. It was a subprime mortgage crisis. And so there wasn't any purse equity for women and men in the developmental mini tours. And then, of course, as women, we don't get the same kind of access and privilege and funds as men do because the return, of course, is not as great. And so it was definitely an uphill battle. And I learned quite a bit. Yeah, that was post-college, immediately post-college.
Yeah. And I often think of athletes and artists as being the ultimate entrepreneurs. You're trying to sell yourself. You're trying to get these people to invest in you, invest in your vision. You're trying to brand yourself and build your brand. And so you were good enough to actually play professionally then.
Yes, I was good enough. It's just that I think the timing was just really poor. The resources were poor. And to play professional golf at that level, everything needs to be hitting at the same time. You need to have the right kind of funds to pay your facilities fees, to pay your coaching, your rehab fees, your caddy fees, your equipment. And at that time, you needed about $120,000 to $160,000 a year to be competitive. And you need about 3 years to get your traction and to get the experience you need. And that runway seems pretty long. 3 years seems pretty long. But if you don't have the funds up front, that means you're working multiple jobs in order to finance. And if you're working multiple jobs in order to finance, you're not fully committed to the game itself and the pitfalls that come along with being a traveling athlete and also maintaining your household and your home base. So it was definitely an uphill battle, one that many people struggled with and still struggle to this day, again, because the money is not there. It's different now with social media, but social media was not around when I was engaging in this quest. And I think, about the influencers who are making millions of dollars just making content, what my life could have been like or would have been like if we had those resources then, because there was just not any money. And if you weren't a silver spoon kid or you weren't coming from an international federation paying your bills, the likelihood of making it is very, very low, very low.
At what point did that register with you? At what point did you realize this is not going to happen, this path?
You can always hope and you always think I'll be the one to break through if I just keep focused. But I think it would be when I was going to work prior to a tournament, working until, 9 a.m., then driving across town, practicing, warming up for the tournament, playing, then driving back across town and working again, and then doing it the next day. I realized if we don't get an infusion of cash fast, this is going to be either a very tumultuous experience or, depressing or just for naught. And I think watching other people go through the same thing and having mentors saying maybe you should pivot, it was a tough decision to make, but in the grand scheme of things, kind of the universe decided for me, and I had to take a break to take care of a family situation. So without me saying I quit and throwing the clubs down and putting them in the closet, the universe said, here's a responsibility that you must undertake. And so that was a pivot that was not a chosen pivot, but it was one that the writing was on the wall. And, I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice.
Yeah, and this family obligation, this was providing hospice care to a family member, correct?
Correct. I was the main caretaker for my grandfather who was terminally ill, and I had to move across country from the arid desert of Arizona to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is a very, very big change. And obviously, living in a very selfish way to being wholly committed to someone else's well being was a very significant and impactful change in my life at that time. I was in my young 20s. And so I think going through it, I thought, my life is over. Because when you're young, you think you're supposed to do, A, B, C, D, and go on this trajectory. But life is clearly not that way. And I learned more in that year and a half as a caretaker than I've learned, I think, before and since. It was a very pivotal, since we're on the subject of pivots, very pivotal moment in my life, and one that I look back with reverence, with inspiration, and also pretty impressed with my capacity to handle the moment that was a big moment in my life and in my family's life, of course.
Yeah, and I have so much admiration for that as well. It was actually a year ago now, I was providing hospice care for my mother. It was
Mm,
only 5 days. It was
okay.
5 days, and it nearly broke me.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
had siblings as well who were there alongside me to help. I
Mhm.
feel like a complete wimp now thinking that that was any kind of emotional hardship.
No, people don't realize the impact that caretaking has on your mental and spiritual state. It can be a day, it can be 10 years. It doesn't matter. The time doesn't matter. It's just that all of your energy is put towards something else, either maintaining, stasis or keeping someone alive or taking someone to death. It is one of the most important roles anyone can have, along with rearing children, I think. And it's also the most tiring, and I'm trying to find the right language. I mean, there's not even any language. It's just a sound effect, I'd say. It
Yeah.
just sucks out all of your marrow because that's what it requires. And I have so much respect for caretakers, and I really think it's a segment of the population that does not get enough love and support because people don't realize how difficult it is, especially if I wasn't in this way, but if you're someone in the sandwich generation where you're taking care of elder parents and children. I can't imagine what that would be because taking care of an old man, that I almost died, or I almost murdered him, or both.
Yeah, and this is the thing, and so often talk about gender dynamics, those responsibilities do fall to women.
Yes, yes. And in my case, it wasn't that I was a woman. I mean, I am a woman, but it was that everyone said, you have a non-traditional job, therefore you have the time to go do this thing. Now, I see the reasoning. You're capable, you're smart, you'll figure it out, you love him, he loves you, it'll be great bonding time for you and your grandfather. Yes. But the doctor said that he had about 2 weeks. And so 2 weeks is different than a year and a half. It's significantly different. And I think while I was going through it, the physicians and the nurses' assistants and all the hospice folks were like, there's no way this man should be alive. It's actually, his insides don't even exist. So that's kind of when I wouldn't say I got into spirituality, but I understood the power of energy because they're like, this man should not be alive. There's no way. But it's you. You're keeping him alive. And I was like, then I should leave. That was our joke. I was like, I should go so we can end this. Because he was also ready to go. He was almost 90. All his friends and family and all his peers were gone. And he was depressed and he was longing for what used to be. And he's like, life is long. Life is long. You really have to live and maybe live posthumously so you can get the most out of it because this can take a long time. And he was ready to go. But I kept him alive and we had really amazing experiences together. I got to hear about someone who was born in 1919 and what life looked like. And it was incredible looking back. And maybe it'll be something that I write about at some point in my life when I'm ready to write about it. But I learned so much from him, watching what not to do, what to do. Just putting someone else first is something that I don't think I would have done ever,
Yeah.
because I didn't need to,
Yeah.
you know?
Did you and maybe the answer is different now than it would have been then, but did you consider that part of your professional journey or a professional pause?
Oh, definitely I didn't know then. Definitely this is something looking back with more understanding of life and the trajectory of life. I thought it was the end of my life.
Mm,
I thought this is it for me. I'm not gonna. I've also I think because I was in this elite institution and on this trajectory, I'm behind now.
yeah.
I've missed out, and somehow something's been going on that I've missed out on. And so now I'm displaced, and now I'll never be able to do the things that I had designs on, or something has missed me. And I realize now, man, that couldn't be further from the truth. It was the exact opposite. I developed skills that I could not have developed in any other way. There was some legal issues going on with my grandfather too that required a close inspection, and I was able to do that. And that was, I worked with a legal clinic in the state, and I learned so much about the law. And my father's an attorney and my uncles are attorneys, and they wanted me to go to law school, and I didn't want to, but I kind of got a firsthand look at older law, and there was a point when the school said, you've almost qualified for the ability to take your bar if you want to. And I'm like, I do not, but thank you so much for recognizing my efforts. And so I would say of all the things I've done in my life, the one thing that I did not plan on is the thing that I'm most proud of. And that is being with him and taking care of him and seeing to his affairs and being foundational support for my family during a very, very difficult time.
Yeah, and it's incredible how these things that crop up in life that are unexpected, at the time, it can seem like the end of the world, like it's really derailing you. And in the end, it can turn out to be something that really helps shape your life and give you those resources and give you that inner strength that pays off down the road, or that surfaces down the road. Yeah. And also, can you imagine how bitter all your Yale friends who went on to law school would have been if you had taken the bar and passed, and they suffered through law school and you didn't even have to, and you passed?
I didn't have to, yeah. Yeah. I sometimes think about it, like, should I have taken the bar? No. Because why? For what? You just hire an attorney. It's fine. Whatever.
So he passed. Again, did you feel this sense of, my goodness, what am I going to do now?
Yes, because at that point, remember, at the end, the closure is more exhausting sometimes than the actual being there. And so there was about 6 months where I was kind of not here. I was a shell of my former self, not yet knowing who my new self would be. And so I went back home to Arizona, and I kind of just sat in the mountains. I hiked, I sat staring at walls, I was in nature, I was contemplating what was next and how did that look and what did it mean and how did it feel. And so it took me a minute to pop out of that depression and also kind of the angst of not knowing where I fit in the world anymore. Because again, I thought, remember, that life had passed me by, that I was not worthy. I had nothing to offer the world. I had no skills. I'm missing a chunk of what makes someone an adult. And so strangely, again, the universe said, here you go, kid, here's something. Before I moved to Arizona, I was living in Florida at Walt Disney World, and I was cross-training with the USA Olympic Track and Field Club, led by Brooks Johnson, who was a Jesse Owens Olympic Hall of Fame coach. And I was cross-training out there, and he invited me to join his crew. Now, his crew, turns out, was full of Olympians, Olympic medalists, gold medalists, world champions. And so here I was training for golf, but actually training with the top athletes in the world. And then he would say, you missed your calling. You should have been a hurdler. You should have done this and that. I'm like, I'm cool. Golf's fine. But that foundational training with those folks and seeing what excellence looks like real time, that helped me transition to the next adventure, which was I got a call from the USA Bobsled and Skeleton Federation, and they were trying to recruit summer sport athletes over to winter sports. And I was talent identified as someone who might be good at bobsled, which I had never thought about in my life other than cool runnings, of course. And, there's no reason for me to think about that. I'm a summer sport, individual sport athlete. So I'm not doing anything. I've been sitting 6 months in the mountain just looking at stones, watching hawks fly, trying to bring myself back to life. I've not worked out in several years. All I can do is fail. But if you are inviting me, I'm not doing anything on Tuesday. Sure, I'll come to Lake Placid, New York and try out. So I spent, I think, 2 weeks training intensely, going back to my Olympic track and field training squad ethos. And then I went to Lake Placid and I passed the combine. The combine is a test of strength and skill, which everyone was shocked by because I came in very underweight, pale, just, again, a shell of myself. And people were like, who is this? A golfer? What? I mean, I was shocked too because I'm like, huh. But the problem was my weight was not enough for bobsled. Bobsleds need weighted people and super strong. And I hadn't lost all that. I didn't have any of it. And I was never really a big, strong person anyway. I was a slight person. And so they said, well, how about skeleton? Skeleton is, luges when you're on your back and your feet first down the ice track. Well, skeleton is face first on your stomach, prone position down the skeleton track. So not very safe. And so they said, you can probably do this because you're light. And so I transitioned to that sport, and that's how that happened.
What
Yeah.
is that first ride down like when you're going face first and you're going how
Mhm.
fast?
They don't start you at the top. If they started you at the top and you had all the skills and the push to start, you probably go, I don't know, 70 miles an hour or more. But
Uh-huh.
they start you a little bit lower, maybe start 4, and you're going down, and I always tell people it's like jumping off a cliff while eating a peppermint patty. And I don't know why that's what I thought, but that's what I thought when I finished my first run. Like, whoa, this is so much fun, and the cold air is rushing in your face, and you're following the contours of the track, and it's icy, and you get down, and you're like, wow, that was a rush. You stop by dragging your feet, and these track workers pull you off the track, and it's just, I don't know, maybe like going through a birth canal at speed. Icy, icy birth canal. And so after that first run, I was hooked. I was like, man, this is so divergent from anything I would have ever thought I was doing. I didn't choose this. I wasn't checking for this. I don't have the training for this. Sounds like an adventure. Let's do it. And so it was a curiosity. And so, yeah, we all moved to Lake Placid, and we were the developmental cohort training for the 2014 Olympic Games in Sochi, Russia. So there was quite a few of us who made the combine and then lived up there at Lake Placid in the Adirondack Mountains. And that experience in itself was just beautiful to see that part of the country and to live at the Olympic Training Center. You pull your sheets off your bed, and the mattress says Olympic mattress, and everything's Olympic this and Olympic that. And you're just like, man, look at this. What is going on? So there's a lot of that feeling. But yeah, that was a cool part of the adventure.
Just to be able to compete at that level just must have been exhilarating.
I'm not sure if the word compete applies to me,
Okay.
but being there, yes. I was definitely, when I got there, I said I was severely underweight. I weighed maybe 110 pounds, and they needed me to gain. So I was put on a dietary program that involved me eating a lot of eggs and chocolate milk. So as you can imagine, it's not very pleasant for my roommates. I gained, I think at my height of being there, I was like 142. Gain that much weight that quickly it's not conducive to feeling and being in your body. I felt like gangly. I felt stiff and slow, and it reflected in my performance because I was not used to legs that I'd never been that big in my life. I think a rite of passage at the Olympic Training Center, especially for the strong man, strong woman sports, is splitting your pants. I split so many pants, and it was again a rite of passage. People celebrated the splitting of your pants, but again, I just didn't know how to use my body at that weight. And the newbies were always concussed. We were broken and bruised. There's always blood, teeth, bodies broken, concussions. And after a year of doing that, I saw a neurologist, and he said to me, what's your favorite part of your body? What's the favorite part of you? And I said, my brain. And he said, then you might want to recreate differently because this is not sustainable. And now looking back, we see a lot of occurrences of CTE in these sports. A lot of bobsledders have CTE, the skeleton athletes. A few have killed themselves, and they're wondering, is this depression? Well, we know it's the gray matter issue. It's CTE. Same that you find in football players, professional football players, sometimes in soccer as well. You see athletes, it's because their star faded and they're depressed. No, it's not. It's because their brain has been damaged. And so I think me getting out of that sport before knowing that, I think is also going to be beneficial to my long-term health and longevity as an operating person with a brain that's operating at its full capacity.
Right. So you decide to leave that behind. I imagine that even after your grandfather passed, there must have been this sense where for that year and a half that you were with him, you had this purpose. And then all of a sudden you lost that purpose. And that
Yes.
when what's the first thing that people in America say? Oh, what do you do? And
Mm-hmm.
not being able to answer that question. We so associate ourselves with our profession here in America. Our personal identity is so tied to that. How did it feel to pop free of that and not have a ready answer for that?
Oh, that's a really good question and a really good observation. I know when I told people, they said, what are you doing now? I'm a caretaker. Okay. But now I'm saying I'm a failed Olympic athlete, and I don't have I can't say I'm a, former professional golfer, because I thought in my mind, I was like, well, I'll still have time and I'll make enough money to go back to professional golf. I was still in my mind thinking, if I can just raise enough money, if I can just make enough money, then I can go back to that. The problem now was because in that system, a lot of the folks who are there, who are professional athletes or elite athletes anyway, not the Olympic movement. A lot of people can't be pros because it's an amateur sport. You're not allowed to work, or you just don't have time to work. So you're spending all this time training for something that pays nothing, and you can't have a job. So now you've got most of the people living there are living below the poverty line. Yes, we're living in dorms and being fed, but after that, what happens in the summer? How do you pay your rent? How do you pay your car note? How do you pay your student loans? So here I was, didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve when I started, have no money, still have student loans, and now I have a broken body. So it was worse because I got a hitch in my giddy up. I am living on my friend's couch in New York City because Lake Placid is upstate New York, and I decided before I went back to kind of hang out in New York and see if I could find some means of employment, gainful employment. So I have nothing except for loans, and I'm broken.
Yeah.
And I have no purpose. So it could go either way. Either I'm going to find a way to break through and be resourceful, or I'm going to go down, down, down in a way that I've seen other people kind of falter and fall and then end up living a lifestyle they don't want to, or engaging in bad behaviors for the long term. So I had support. I had familial support in terms of, hey, kid, you're going to find a way. And friends saying, you'll be fine. You'll figure it out. Because everyone knew, you're just living an adventure. You'll figure it out. So,
well, and as an athlete, I imagine you'd faced a lot of challenges as well and built a certain degree of resilience to that point.
For sure. And also, I think ultimately I knew I'm disciplined enough. I'm savvy enough. I'm resourceful enough. I'm a quick study. Whatever it is next, even if it's just a placeholder until I get to what I'm trying to get to or the next thing, I'll be able to make it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I had done some preparation just on the side. I was certified for personal training and sports performance coaching. So that was going to help. I had done some sports modeling for brands. And so I knew that would be a source of income. So everything I was doing in that early New York years was just about recuperating funds, paying down some student loans after asking for forbearance, and saving money for golf, saving money to go back when the time was better, when the economy was better. And so I was just a pack rat, just packing, and trying to figure it out that way in my New York City years anyway.
Yeah. And I think that there are a lot of people in this position now, be they early in their career or even people who are a lot further along and looking at maybe the last decade of employment with so many layoffs happening right now, be it the mass layoffs in the media industry. We've got people in other industries losing jobs because of the impact of AI, suddenly finding themselves out in that wilderness and finding that, what worked for me in the past isn't working for me now. How do I
Right.
find my way out of this? Seeing people who'd been in their position in their industry maybe not find their way out of that hole. What advice do you give to them?
People ask me this question quite a bit, and I think part of the issue is it's hard for me to speak on folks who have a traditional lifestyle, because often that means children, and you can't just pick up and leave. You can't just, abscond on your mortgage. I mean, these are things I did not have to deal with when I was pivoting and pivoting just recklessly. I think really, if you've worked in a system for so long and you've given so much of your life and your job has been eliminated, all that you put in, and you're still not where you thought you'd be, well, now might be the time to do the things you actually want to do. Because I think what happens is people have the stability idea. If I'm stable, then that's fine. But now we know, especially during the pandemic, stability means nothing because you still are a hired hand for someone else's vision. And so I think people need to look really closely at, what is it that I want to do? And maybe to find that, the question is, what is it that I don't want to do or I'm not willing to do? And maybe you make a list of those things and you eliminate. And once you eliminate, you can then hone in on the things you want to do. So I have a lot of friends who, again, they were, these are Emmy winners, maybe Oscar winner here and there, folks who are the top of their class, top of their trade, who are working Uber Eats or Trader Joe's or baristas or whatever. But I think what's also that allowed them to do is to focus on what really in their deep essence, the thing that they never did that they always wanted to do. Now is the time to do that, because that could yield a small business. That could bring joy back to your life in a very joyless time. And that joy, that internal joy, will then radiate. And when that happens, you attract things to you. And I'm not, I think people think, oh, you're in LA, you've got this, la la land manifestation thing. But I really think it's true. If you are living a joyous way, even if it's something small for yourself, it becomes you. And that energy is attractive. Energy is a real thing. So I really encourage all my friends and acquaintances who are going through this to, again, what is it that you want? Because you did the thing you were supposed to do, and yet look at you now. You're still not stable. Whereas my trajectory has been complete instability, abject insanity, and I'm doing okay. I live a
Yeah.
freelance lifestyle, so things there are the ebbs and flows, but I feel happy and I feel that I'm operating my best and highest use right now in this capacity. Storytelling, amplifying things that I think are important, supporting causes and missions that really resonate with me and things that I want to see for the future, for our future leaders, and saving the earth, educating children, making sure people have equal access to health and nourishment, and all those things are important to me. And so I can use my voice to do those things in a way that, in my platform, that I don't think I could have designed
Yeah.
previously, because I just didn't know it was a thing.
And I love how you've been able to integrate a lot of these values and causes that you're interested in and that you are driven by into your career now. I do want to get back to the fact that you so brilliantly had these skills in terms of being a certified personal trainer and performance coach from your previous life, so to
Mhm.
speak, that you were able to use and monetize to help you with that transition too. And so I think if people are able to look at what skills they have, what arrows they have in their quiver that are monetizable too, to use as that bridge to the next step, I think that
Yeah.
that can be helpful.
That's the probably what I left out of the advice would be education. Educate yourself. Educate and inform yourself. And also, because of the internet, everything is monetizable. That's something I learned. I'm like, oh wow, you love knitting sweaters for three-legged dogs. There's an app for that, and also there's a I love it. But I would also caution folks too to be careful. Don't monetize everything you love, because
Mm,
then you won't love it anymore, or you run the risk of no longer loving it in the same way. So if you monetize something that brings you joy, it might not be as joyful, because now it
yeah.
becomes a responsibility. So I would say just use some discernment in that so that you don't overwhelm yourself and take away the one bit of joy you had in the search
Yeah.
for and the quest for remuneration. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And this is always what I find the tricky part is there cannot, and you referred to this earlier on too, there there can be that desperate scramble to cover the bills, provide for yourself now, make sure that you're able to sustain yourself now. And that can oftentimes get in the way of the long-term plan
Right.
that where you might be able to position yourself to be better for the long term. That can be so very difficult, where if
Yes.
you are so bogged down and not having a good social safety net in our country, I think limits innovation and limits people so much in that regard.
Hmm. For sure. For sure.
Yeah. Now, so I love the story of your transition. You're in New York City. You're working as a personal trainer.
Mhm.
How did the voiceover work start to creep in?
Yes. So I was working as a one-on-one personal trainer and performance coach. So, one client, myself, for an hour. Then I added group training. So that's me in front of a group teaching a skill or a set of skills. I'm a golf pro, so I was able to teach golf at the same time. So I would bounce between facilities that are all around New York City. I would go teach golf. I'd run to the gym, teach a class there. I'd run to a pool and teach there. And so I was all over the city, up and down. But there was one particular case. I was teaching for a place that's no longer in existence, but it was called Mile High Run Club. And it was the first of its kind treadmill-based running studio. So we had the top end treadmills in there, and it was a 30-minute high-intensity interval training or a kind of a marathon training session, depending on what you chose. And so as the instructor, we're mic'd, and our runners are on these expensive, fancy treadmills. The music is up, the lights. It's kind of like a dance club, but running, if you can imagine that. So
Yeah.
the lights are paired to the beat of the music, and people are really jazzed. And my playlists were always banging, Carrie. My
Uh,
playlists were so good. So some people would come to my class just for the playlists. And then to be on mic over the music to actually get my point across for the training aspect, I would tell these stories, not just, run faster or zone 2, zone 3. I would kind of navigate a world like, imagine you're in a forest and there's snacks at the end. And so I would do that in addition to the music. And folks, I think, at least my informal survey, they were coming because, one, I had the know-how. I had the practical know-how for how to get people to get to where they needed to be, whether they're training to lower their numbers for their diabetes or training for an ultra marathon. It didn't matter. I had the know-how. I had the experience in coaching athletes, and also I would tell these stories, and my soundtrack was banging. So one day, this woman approached me after class, and she said, "You have a great voice, but more than that, you are a really great storyteller." And I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever. Story of point A to point B. I guess that's a story. We're trying to get you there." And she was a talent agent. She said, "You should consider voiceover." So I'm like, "I don't know what voiceover is, but okay, thanks so much. I'll see you next time." I told my boyfriend about it. For my birthday, he got me vocal lessons. And so it wasn't a give a girl a fish type situation. It was a teach a girl to fish. So I went to these vocal lessons, and the coach it was a pack of 3. The coach in the very first session, halfway through, she stopped and she said, "I think you should do this. Like, you shouldn't recreate, don't pass go straight to jail, voiceover jail, and do it." Again, I kind of hemmed and hawed. I wasn't really taking it seriously. And then maybe a year later, I decided to, at the time, there were these pay-to-play sites, kind of like Craigslist for voices. And I joined and I submitted an audition. And that audition was to be the voice of World Channel, which is a PBS channel, for all the promos. I booked it on my first try.
Wow.
And so now I'm like, uh-oh. So, oh, maybe I should take this seriously. It took more training. And it was because PBS is a SAG signatory, a SAG-AFTRA union signatory. I was what's called a must join, meaning I must join the labor union. Once you do that, you can no longer do non-union work. You have to do union work. But the check was significant enough that I said, well, I've been trying to get out of New York City. This has been fun in my 20s, but I'm trying to get back west to my family and back to sunshine and mountains and fording rivers. How can I do that? That check did the thing. I took that money. I moved to LA. I paid first month's, last month's, and deposit, got a car, paid my dues, and now I'm living in LA. Just like that, because of voiceover, because of teaching athletes for the New York City Marathon. And that's how that pivot happened. Again, I had no idea, wasn't checking for it, had no interest, had no knowledge. And now I'm recording out of my closet next to my winter parka.
I love that so much. I know the importance of the banging playlist. I taught indoor cycling for 8 years. Nobody ever said you should go become a voiceover artist. So kudos to you.
But they'll always remember your playlist, Carrie. They'll always remember.
The playlists are so key. Yeah. And the people, it's so
Definitely.
true. People will come because of your playlist. So I totally hear you. So I just have to ask a total tangent. Did you leave that boyfriend who paid for those voice lessons? Did you leave him behind to go to move to LA?
It's a very sensitive subject. We are the best of friends. We are the best of friends. That he is one of my best friends. And, in terms of partnership, you look at someone who really supports your efforts. And to this day, as my best friend, he is supportive. And he has a lovely, lovely girlfriend now.
Okay. Good. Otherwise, we could have put that on the female founders wish list that we'll get to in a bit, find him a lovely girlfriend.
Find him. I was going to say, find me. Find me a lovely man. Shoot. What you talking about? I think I was selfish. Didn't you hear me say that at the top?
Oh, God. And I love, too, that you incorporated the importance of story as well in these efforts. It's almost foreshadowing the life and the career that you would have.
Mm-hmm.
There are all these echoes of your future life in your earlier professional life. The pivotal role that fitness training would have in your transition. And then had you not been coaching people, maybe you never would have encountered that talent coach who would have said those words. Maybe you'd still be doing whatever you had done instead of finding this new outlet and way of storytelling. So you have 2018 listed in your bio as the year that you started as a voiceover artist. Is that correct then? Yeah,
full-time. Well, giving it a full-time effort. I moved from New York in 2017, but that first year, one thing I should explain is that people may hear this and might not quite understand it, but in New York, it's about your work ethic and your ability. I wouldn't say it's quite a meritocracy, but it kind of is. In LA, it's about who you know. New York is about what you know and how you apply it. LA is about who you know. And coming from New York to LA and not having lived here before, I knew no one, which meant, here's my skills. And they're like, we don't know you. So there was a year that I had to kind of infiltrate this Hollywood system. And folks also should understand that it's entertainment, but it's entertainment business. And again, the business is based on relationships and I had none. So part of my first year in LA was just becoming acclimated to this city and the way this city works, the way this industry works. Because again, I'm coming from sports, which is entertainment also, but a different side of the entertainment world. And I just needed to know what the terms were. What does being a professional actor look like? What does being a professional actor in the center of Hollywood look like? What does voiceover professionalism look like? How do I find an agent? Who are the people I need to know? What are the studios? How do I gotta get a home. I don't know anything. So I spent the first year learning. I said to myself, let's not worry about money. We've put stuff in the bank. We're gonna eat peanut butter sandwiches and top ramen. I mean, literally, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna walk and take mass transit and ride my bike everywhere. And I'm just gonna learn. I'm gonna learn. And that sacrifice yielded so much thereafter. But again, it was a sacrifice because, well, it wasn't a sacrifice because it's me doing what I want to do, but it was a reassessment of lifestyle. Let's put it that way.
And sometimes we do need to do that. We need to take that step back in order to make that leap forward.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to invest in ourselves and our dreams just as we would invest in other people and support other people who we might help along the way.
Right.
I can say this as someone who went back to get her MBA in her 50s. Yeah.
Wow.
Did you think that Hollywood was going to roll out the red carpet for you and welcome you with open arms and that the work would start coming? Or did you anticipate that the culture was going to be very different and that whole process, it was going to be very different in terms of finding work?
That's something I should look at. I should interrogate that. I didn't think there was going to be any red carpet rolled out because I think in my mind, I'm kind of a journeywoman in anything I do. I work hard. I'm disciplined. I'm respectful. I'm good to collaborate with. But that's the extent of what I thought. This is a profession. I'm going to do it. I'll be able to pay my bills. And that's it. I didn't think there was going to be this grand wave of, name and lights on the marquee. And that's not. And also, I wasn't an actor. I knew nothing. And I had nothing to lose as a result. I wasn't a thespian. I wasn't trained in the arts. I wasn't dreaming of being a star and have my name in lights and having a star on the Hollywood walk. None of that. I didn't care. It's a profession. I want to learn as much as I can. I'm curious and I want to achieve mastery because that's what I do. I see something and I want to achieve mastery. I'm like, where's the best burrito? I'm going to find it and I'm going to eat it and it's going to be great. So that's my personal drive is where is it? What is it? How do we master it? And so that was what I was concerned with, nothing else. It was a very difficult to get into it, but once I started getting traction, I think my athletic background helped because there was no personal attachment. I wasn't attaching my self-worth to this craft like I did in sports. I had nothing to lose, everything to gain. It was fun. It was different. It was a new challenge. And so I've created a life that a career a lot of folks try to emulate now because they think it's fabulous and wonderful. But there was a lot of work that was not rewarded at the time that's now being rewarded.
I think that's so important for people to hear because it does seem like a great industry, one where you have a lot of autonomy and control over your schedule. Probably not, though. You probably have a lot
No,
of clients who are controlling your schedule. But at the same
exactly.
time, there are a lot of people who would want to get into this industry without recognizing that it is so much more difficult. It isn't just about having a great voice. You really are
Hmm.
a storyteller, and your
Yes.
inflection and how you tell these stories and how you put yourself in the right mindset to convey what you want to convey and get people to feel the way you want people to feel really is a skill
Hmm.
and
It
not
is.
something that I think everyone with a great voice has.
Right. And I think also a lot of actors who, especially during the pandemic, the on-camera actors or the theater folks, they try to transition to voiceover because they weren't employed.
Yeah.
And so they thought, oh, I'll just get a mic and it'll be the same thing. But acting to a mic, you have to have a big imagination
Yeah.
because you have no costumes. There are no cameras. There's no makeup. There's no hair. It's all you creating, manifesting this world that then the listener can intimately hear and be moved and motivated by. So it is about nuance. I think the biggest thing that helped me learn about storytelling is listening to elders. Because when someone is smoking their pipe, sitting in a rocking chair, or like even on the subway, you can hear it. It feels alive. It's like kind of the griot culture. And so I was just like, let me sit down in front of a whole bunch of elders and listen to what they have to say.
Mm.
And one of my challenges for myself when I first moved to LA is talk to at least 5 people every day that you don't know.
Mm.
And 3 of them must be elders, whether it's in the grocery store or on mass transit or at the post office. Listen to them and listen to the way they craft a story. I'm not sure what happens with age, but you kind of slow down and you're more nuanced if you really listen closely. And people can take you on a journey in 5 minutes. And you're like, dang.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was listening for, the way people, different languages, the cadence, the storytelling, like the narrative arc, the character development. And so I just spent a lot of time listening.
Mm.
And that, I think, impacted my craft more than anything else, more than a class I was taking about technique and how far away you should be from the mic and using gesture and costume and stuff. It was about listening.
Yeah.
I'm a professional listener. That is what I do professionally. I'm a voice actor. I act, but really, at the heart of what I do is listening. That is my job. And then I reflect that, what I've heard, to the mic, and then you hear it in your earbuds or on TV or in a theater or in a stadium. But really, it's about listening to the other person you're speaking with, listening to the morning chorus of the birds, listening to the cadence of the waves and the rocks. It's collecting all these sounds and experiences and then taking someone on the journey by explaining what I'm seeing and hearing and experiencing. It's really ultimately all listening. It's musical.
Yeah. And you make me think of your time with your grandfather as well and his sharing of stories and being able to relate to someone of that generation too. Do you think that played a part in
Oh,
helping you?
most definitely. I mean, he'd served in several wars. He'd had a very, very experience. This is a Black man born in 1919. So imagine what he saw. He was a photographer during Vietnam. So I was able to look through some of his stuff that he probably shouldn't have had, that he kept, and hear him tell me about what he saw. He told me he was a world traveler. He was a martial arts champion. I mean, very storied life. Again, as a Black man in America, in the world at that time, I mean, the stories are crazy. And he would either smoke a cigar, a Romeo and Juliet, or he would have his pipe. And then, let me set the scene for you, he would have his oxygen tank.
Keep those lighters far away.
He would have his oxygen tank, and he'd be smoking. There'd be a cat in his lap. Ashes are dropping on the cat. The cat's fidgeting, and I'm sitting below him below his rocking chair. The lights coming in, the dappled light, and I'm just sitting there like, this is a scene in a movie or something. And the stories he would tell, and his voice was kind of rough, and he would tell me the stories. I'm like, dang, I wish looking back I would have recorded them, but I can hear them in my my head. And yeah, the cadence, the silences, the exclamations, the sound effects, all of that story informs what I do today. Yes, for sure. Not knowing it while it was happening, but now, yes, most definitely.
Yeah, how it all comes full circle again, how these moments from earlier in our life have an impact on us professionally, personally, later down the road that we never would have anticipated. So
Right.
you got to LA. Clearly, you were successful within a few short years. You were named Voice Artist of the Year.
Yes, a few short years, a lot of hard work. Again, I consumed everything. I listened to every single podcast on voiceover. I watched all the videos. I took every single class. I was like Urkel. I'd show up like, I'm here. And so people started to get to know me around town. Like, who is that with the dogged energy? Who's going to find a way to make it? That's the person I was. And yeah, in a few short years, I was able to be aligned with some really significant projects. And as a result, they were recognized. And really, the other thing I really learned about being in this business is it's about team. I'm just one part of the process, and often the last part, the voice acting. But there's the creative directors, the writers, the engineers, the mixers, the sound producers, the executive producers, the location scouts, the animators. All these people work so doggedly to make sometimes a project that's only 15 seconds long. And how special is that to be on that team? So now I joke that my 2 favorite things in life are like snacks and collaboration. And if you can do them both at the same time, what is this? What is this dream I've dreamt, Carrie? It's amazing.
So you've done commercials for the top brands in the world.
Yes.
You've offered your voice to characters in some of the best-selling video games, including Call of Duty. You have done commercials for various different causes and promos for various different causes, including presidential candidates.
Mhm.
You have won an Emmy, a Telly, a Clio, and you have even gotten into acting, not just voice
Mhm.
acting, but acting, appearing in the series adaptation of A League of Her Own. How did that happen, that transition from voice acting to appearing on screen as an actress?
Yeah, that was again another surprise, not something that I was checking for. I think my voice is pretty resonant, and so people hear it and they remember me or remember my voice anyway. And so it was during the pandemic. I was doing voiceover full time, and now since everything has transitioned to remote recording and remote operations, because I was primed, because I had a home studio, I was able to book a lot of work because a lot of actors weren't ready. They didn't have the home studio and it wasn't broadcast quality. So not
Mm.
that they were exempt, but I kind of had a head start. And then also on social media, I'm not a big social media user just because I think it kind of takes me out of my game and it's not really my
Mm.
interest. But I was posting videos of me taking a break from the studio. I called it Closet Chronicles. And then I would do what I called a studio breaker, where I would just get out of the house. I was also living with my roommates who were my parents during the pandemic. So I needed some breaks.
Oh, yeah.
I needed some breaks. And so I would go outside and do something physically active because that's good. You're away from people, you're big open spaces, fresh air, and I also love to be active. So I would go out with my dog and I would self-toss and hit baseballs just out into the field or at the golf course, and I would just beat these balls. And I played baseball growing up too, and so I would post some of that on social media as my studio break. Well, I guess they were looking at the time for baseball players who they could teach to act
Ah.
and or someone who was somewhere near the orbit of baseball who could fit the role that they were looking for. It just so happened the role that they were casting for my role, Esther, they needed a woman my age, my demographic, who could play baseball, who had some acting ability. Well, I play baseball. I have the skill. I'm a voice actor. But we can teach her. She's directable because really ultimately being a good actor is about being directable. And they reached out. My agent reached out and said, "Hey, you want to audition for this?" I love A League of Their Own. I love the movie. You know, I met all those actors when I was a little tiny girl, and I am thinking, I love that movie. Sure, let's do it. And I booked it. And the next thing I know, I'm now during the pandemic living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we're shooting on location. And now I'm an on-camera actor, and I am just kind of beside myself. Like, what is happening? How did I get, what? I was just with my dog outside my parents' house. And now I'm in Pittsburgh looking at the river, you know?
Do
So,
you prefer one over the other, the voice acting? Do you wanna keep
mm,
pursuing the on-camera work that you've done?
for a while, I was saying I need more data because
Mhm.
on camera acting is it's acting, yes, but it's a different system. When you're doing voiceover, I mean, this is my home studio. As you see, I can be in my home studio or an outbound studio around town. But acting requires you up and move to a facility. There's a lot of sitting around. Voice acting, studio time is expensive. Minutes count. You're in and you're out, unless it's a long project. But again, there are very strict parameters. Acting on camera, you memorize your lines and then you sit and you wait and you wait and you wait. And so, being a fast switch person, I think I like the action of voiceover because I can turn over, I can do disparate projects very, very quickly. But there is something about storytelling in that medium that I'm now very intrigued by, and I've done some more acting on camera since then. And I think it's actually one of my goals this year and going forward is to focus more, not more on that, but focus in a different way, in a way that before I think everything I've booked on camera was a fluke because I had a specific skill. I can ride horses. I was booked for a Western. I can play golf. I was booked for a golf role. I can box. I was booked for a boxing role. But now I want to tack the craft like I tacked voice acting because it does deserve respect and it's its own thing completely. So that's what I'm working on now is getting the proper training and really focusing on the nuance of that craft.
As a kid, did you ever dream of acting? When you saw all the people at the illustrious Yale School of Drama, did you ever give a thought to pursuing that back then, or did it just seem like not the responsible path?
Well, no, I had no interest. I had no interest in it. I was interested in physics. I was interested in other things. I will say that I have a cousin who's a playwright, Lonnie Berry, and so I think when I was younger, I got to see his shows go live on stage, and that was cool. And then also growing up in Seattle, Washington, August Wilson was a family friend. So going to see Fences and going to see these plays and thinking, that's cool. Look how someone brings a story to life. And now looking back, I'm like, dang, I didn't know then, again, that this was going to be something, the arts were going to be something for me. I mean, we lived near Jacob Lawrence, the famous painter. And sometimes when I'd be walking to the grocery store as a little kid, he'd be like, let me hold your hand. And we would walk to the store together. Or like, stop, don't jaywalk. And I'm like, that was Jacob Lawrence teaching me about life. So looking back, I'm like, dang, I had no idea the arts would be a thing. My mom was a visual artist, not being on camera, not being behind the mic. It was nothing. I had no interest at all, to be honest.
Wow.
Which might be irresponsible to say now, but yeah, no interest.
Yeah, all those people who wanted to be an actor or actress since age 5 are all clenching their fists right now listening to this. She's not worthy. But clearly you put in the work, and I see a lot of that, the same sensibilities and dedication to the craft that it takes to become a professional athlete in what you've done to become a top award-winning vocal artist and actress as well. Now, if you compare again artists to entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs are constantly facing threats to their industry, and they're also always looking at brand extensions and pivoting their product. So
Yes.
AI is clearly a threat to a lot of voice artists. Do you see it as a threat?
To certain segments of the business, yes. Actually, hearing Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about AI the other day, I'm like, it was a different perspective. But yes, the business has definitely morphed. You see a lot of the medical narration has been eliminated. Long form narration I used to read for Vanity Fair and The Atlantic and The New York Times. Those jobs don't exist for me anymore. They are a very small group of people who do them now. And then it's the rest of it's machine. Audiobooks, there's a big argument about audiobooks now and pirating of audiobooks for free audiobooks online. That's a big issue. But I think at the top of voiceover, those folks, celebrities, well-known key opinion leaders, they'll always have work. And also, I think audiobooks will always have work as a human because, especially since it's so intimate, people listen to audiobooks with earbuds in their ears, into their ear canal. The human brain can tell artifice versus humanity. And so I think those parts of the business are safe. But yes, I have seen a lot taken away because of AI. And it's not just on the voiceover side, it's on the script writing side. A lot of producers and creative directors have been eliminated. Those positions have been eliminated because they just give the machine a prompt and they spit out scripts. And so it's not just my section, it's the entire ecosystem has been affected. And in LA, you can feel the malaise in the air when people from every aspect of this business, the caterers have less jobs, the cobblers have less jobs, the florists, the truck drivers, those people all support the industry here. It's not like the East Coast where everyone's got a different field. There's medicine and law and education. Here, everyone in LA supports the industry of entertainment. And to see the entire ecosystem collapse has been pretty striking. A lot of it has to do with AI as well.
Yeah, that's got to be a really depressing atmosphere to be immersed in. So to counter that again, what kind of brand extensions are you looking at for your personal brand? You mentioned getting into acting. Are there other avenues that you're pursuing that you see as almost like an insurance against that machine future that we're all facing?
I think what I'm doing is going towards genres or focusing more this year on genres that I know humans would be required for or preferred for, and that those being audiobooks. Also, it's an issue of age too. As I age, I want to be able to have access to proper health care and a continued pension. In the acting union, SAG-AFTRA, you have to maintain a certain minimum every year to qualify for health insurance. And that minimum is, I think, $36,000. So I'm thinking over time, what can I do so that I can outlast the ageism inherent in the entertainment business? You know, your face goes, your body goes, you're older, especially for women. But you know who persists? Audiobook narrators. I've met audiobook narrators in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s who are still working professionals, making their minimums. Because you want to hear a wizened person tell you a story, don't you?
Yeah.
You don't want to, I mean, unless it's like, you know, a graphic novel and it's a, you know, young adult. But the aged voice sounds more in the know oftentimes. Yeah. So I'm going towards areas where they're going to want a voice with more texture and more lived in experience. Same with live announce. So announcing shows. I mean, the other day I announced Eddie Murphy's AFI tribute. So it's like coming to the stage. All the way from her beautiful studio is Carrie. Like that kind of stuff. They want a live voice for that, that they want someone to kind of lead and narrate the show. So I'm doing more of that. And then there's some musical projects. I'm getting into writing. I'm doing some things that I think also serve like a spiritual or creative passion, not just always being a hired hand or hired voice. And all those things I think inform the work I do that pays the bills every day: commercials, promos, trailers, things like that. But I know that there is a timeline, there's a window, and my window is open, but it's starting to sun down a little bit. You see the horizon getting a little closer, and you've got to be aware. You don't want to be ignorant to the fact that things change and the trends change, and there's a need for novelty. So I'm quite aware.
Yeah, well, you are that expert not pickup artist. You are that expert pivot artist.
Maybe that's my next thing. I'm gonna be a pickup artist. I'm gonna teach people how to pick up their partners in bars. Yes.
You are the expert pivot artist. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, we do have this female founders wish list where I ask female entrepreneurs, what is one item that could help your business move forward today, or maybe even just make your life a little bit easier, something that's of reasonable value. On our website, thefemalefoundersproject.com, I have a female founders wish list where I post these cards. And if listeners are able to fulfill a wish, we give them a shout out on the pod, maybe even create a little social media shout out as well. So is there anything that's on your wish list?
That's a really good question and a very generous offer. I think anytime, because I'm a service, I don't have a product, at least at this point.
Yeah.
I'm selling my services. And so I think amplification of my services to new audiences is probably the thing I'd want most. So that could come in the form of PR and media, amplifying projects that I'm proud of and excited by and think make a big impact. One of them being Wild Hope, which is a conservation series that shows on PBS and on wildhope.tv. So just amplification of my craft as an artist and of projects that I find important. So yes, that's what I would ask for. Yeah.
Fantastic. So shout out her work, shout out Wild Hope at wildhope.tv and on PBS. Correct. And also, as I've said, you are so practiced in the art of the pivot now. You've had so much experience in pivoting from that dream of being a professional golfer to providing hospice care and then getting out of that and creating this means of sustaining yourself as a personal trainer, which unexpectedly led to this voiceover work. You've had so many pivots in your own life. What advice would you give to that person who's listening today, who finds themselves in a position, maybe they've just lost their job, they're being forced to pivot? You touched on this a little bit earlier, but do you have any other words of advice?
I'm still living this myself because I realize a new pivot needs to happen soon. I'm usually 3 to 5 years at something, and then I'm like, okay. But being quiet, because I think the thing you first want to do is rush into the next thing. You're trying to save yourself. But sometimes the SOS needs to be sit quietly, ruminate. We don't want to be in Dr. Seuss's waiting for an opportunity, but you do need to be quiet because you can't hear what the next thing will be if there's too much noise and too much chaos. So maybe sit quietly in the pain, in the angst, in the uncertainty, because something will come of it. And then again, also kind of a soul searching, like what brings you joy? I can honestly say at this point in my careers, I am having fun. And when I have fun, I give more. And when I give more, the quality is better and the yield is bigger. Like my scale, my scope is bigger. I'm affecting bigger change, and then work begets work. But if I was not having fun, the end user wouldn't hear it or feel it. It'd be okay. It'd be decent. But we're not striving for mediocrity here. I want to actually affect change. And I want to book more work because it does pay my bills, but also I enjoy it. I enjoy collaborating. I enjoy creating things that actually make change. So I would say, again, to answer your question, long-winded, sit quietly and assess what it is that makes your soul feel alive. And then one other thing I'd say is, and this is something that a mentor of mine, Pam Slim, gave me, and she said that not every season needs to be like the reaping season. Like sometimes you plant, and sometimes you sow, but sometimes you plant, and everything is underground, and it's just kind of warming up and incubating. And so don't forget the incubation part. Not everything needs to be production and showing the world and producing. sometimes it really is sitting back, resting, learning, connecting, and then you can come out. And then you come out stronger, your roots are deeper, the more solidified, you've gotten rid of the weevil, and the yield will be that much more robust and tasty. Yeah.
I love that. Really respecting those fallow times. It can be so scary a moment to be in, but really taking that time and letting things settle and allowing yourself to reflect rather than scrambling and grabbing whatever's available to you. Because as we're seeing, these companies aren't necessarily offering stability these days. So
Mm-hmm.
what can you do to work towards something that can offer you joy and fulfillment in the long run? And maybe it won't be as financially lucrative immediately, but as you say, when you put your whole heart and soul into it, that work begets work and that
Yeah,
quality begets quality. I love that.
for sure. And the liminal space can seem scary. Like maybe there's like a fluorescent bulb, like just blinking, and you're like, oh my gosh, is this a jump scare? But I think that that's when some really great ideas can come, or revelations. And that's when funds are low or resources are low, that's when you start bartering. And then you barter, and then you create some kind of partnership. And the next thing you know, now y'all have a business together, or you discovered something in your community you didn't know about. It's when times are down that the best growth comes, always, for me anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
when I'm doing well, sometimes I'm like, I need to create some chaos.
Yeah.
I need some chaos.
Yeah, those times of scarcity can really trigger something in us, that survival
Oh, yes.
instinct. And also I heard a quote from Scott Galloway where he admits that he steals quotes from other people, so maybe it wasn't his, but he talked about how creating has been shown to bring more happiness and joy to people than consuming.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, and so if you are
Except Carrie, when it comes to food.
snacks,
That's
except the snacks.
Yeah, I don't need to be part of the creation process. I'm part of the consumption process.
Yeah, the eggs and what was it that you were having at the training center? The eggs and
chocolate milk. Yeah, not that.
eggs and chocolate milk. Imagine you can't even look at eggs and chocolate milk now.
I don't drink chocolate milk, and I don't do eggs anymore. Not a bit. Not in their raw form. No way.
Yeah. But I think there's something to be said of having that time where you limit your consumption and focus on creation and
Oh, for
see
sure.
how that really energizes. I saw somebody else posted on LinkedIn, and the metaphor that they used was knowing when to get the reps in and knowing when to rack the bar, and give yourself that break and that brain time to reflect and come up with your next brilliant idea. But this has been such an incredible hour, hearing your journey, hearing about how you have been able to build this beautiful, wonderful life that really taps into the storyteller in you, where you are able to work on these projects that are deeply meaningful to you, touching the conservation world that you're so passionate about, and a world that you really feel good about, as opposed to something that you feel was a path that you feel forced to take. It's amazing, and it's so inspiring to so many people who are in the wilderness right now and trying to figure things out. So I appreciate you sharing your journey with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Carrie. This has been fun. And also, thanks for the prompts to make me think about this in ways that I have not thought about it before.
Well, I absolutely loved hearing your story. If people want to find out more about you and perhaps want to send some work your way, or at least listen to that amazing voice of yours in its full range, from audiobooks and feature films to live announcing to every commercials and promos, where can they find out more about you?
They can find me on social at Andia Winslow. That's ANDIA. And then my website is andiavoiceover.com. And then out in these streets, out in the trees, out in, wherever I am, say hello.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andia. I really appreciate you speaking with me today.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks again to Andia Winslow for sharing her story and all her hard-won wisdom in navigating the professional pivot. If you'd like to hear more of that remarkable voice or learn about Andia's work, visit her at andiavoiceover.com. As always, links are in the show notes. And don't forget to tune in to Wild Hope on PBS or at wildhope.tv. For her founder wishlist request, Andia would love to see listeners amplify the series and help it reach new audiences. If you or your connections could help spread the word, head to mygreatpivot.com and click on Founder Wishlist at the top of the page to learn more. My Great Pivot is a production of the Female Founders Project. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, subscribe, and give it a 5-star review. It helps others find it. And if you'd like to share your own entrepreneurial journey, we'd love to hear from you at thefemalefoundersproject.com. Thanks for listening and keep innovating.